In the meantime, I want to go to Anne Dunsmore. We were talking about California reopening and Disneyland reopening and quasi getting back to normal, but all of this occurs in the middle of this recall effort that looks like the governor will be forced to sort of defend his turf and his governorship sometime this fall. They're counting all the ballots and all of that, or at least those signatures arguing for another election. Anne is with Rescue California, campaign manager and finance director. Anne, I was looking at some of the polling numbers on Governor Newsom. Not that he's a rock star, but he's certainly not, doing as badly as he was at the height of the pandemic, when he was eating at restaurants, when he was telling other people not to, that he's rebounded somewhat. Are you worried?
Not at all. I think whenever an incumbent is below 60%, they've got a target on their back. And he did not really rebound that much at all, if at all. It just depends on which poll you're looking at. I mean, usually when you have a state of the state that's also basically a campaign kickoff, you expect that event to pull you back up in your numbers, and he just flatlined. And in fact, his media tour right after that got even, I think, made it worse. I think Jake Tapper really did a number on him. So I'm actually quite hopeful. We haven't had a chance to really go after him. And, just on the numbers, listen, he's getting his second tranche of federal funding. He hasn't spent the first tranche. He's got 1 million jobless applications that have not have been fulfilled for 2020. And it's April. It's May. So I think there's a lot of angry people out there. I think he makes it worse. And he's our best campaign asset, actually. Not worried at all.
Well, I know where you're going about, but the latest poll so that he has a 59% approval how he's handled jobs in the economy. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he gets kudos for handling the pandemic, to your point. But are there any Democrats willing to challenge it? It looks like all Republicans lining up, and that was largely the case with Governor Davis back in 2003 when, Arnold Schwarzenegger emerged as the top Republican to take him on and win. What about now?
Well, what about now is all about no party preference. In 2003, when we recalled Gray Davis, we had declined a state, slightly different. No party preference is a very dominant force now in the state of California. Sometimes it exceeds Republican registration. Now, the interesting thing about no party preference, they've made a decision not to follow party lines and party dictates. And as you know, we're a one-party state here. So, it's not like New York, you saw Democrats are moving, New York City, supposedly, the Democrats are re-registering as Republicans. Those are people that are comfortable inside of a party structure. When somebody's in no party preference, they've made a decision not to be part of a party structure. And I think we're in a post-partisan era. So he's doing, I'm going to tell you another poll that ought to scare the pants off of him. And that's the UCLA poll where they polled parents of school-age children. 76% of the parents said that their children had been substantially damaged both academically and emotionally by the mishandling of the pandemic. Now, Los Angeles is not an easy county for him. The battleground is going to be Southern California. And I would venture a guess that most of the parents were actually the moms who used to be soccer moms and are now just mad moms, and they aren't going to forget, and that is a very, very important demographic in any political campaign. So there's a lot for him to be worried about, and there's, people have denied and been in denial about the success, the possibility of success of a recall. We proved them wrong every single time by substantial margins, and I think we're positioned to do that now as well.
All right. It depends on the candidate. Ultimately, we'll watch very closely. Anne Dunsmore, thank you. Rescue California campaign manager, finance director.